So here is our seal. And it says in the instructions that we need to install a little bit of a gasket sealer onto here before we install it. So got to go and find some of that. I've got some somewhere. There we go, we're going to use Loctite 5922 flange sealant. Because you've always got to seal up your flange, haven't you? And I'm assuming you don't need a ridiculous amount of this stuff. Well, I don't know what happened there, but I was elbows deep in flange grease and you just disappeared. So I've just gone ahead and banged this oil seal in there with a little bit of the gasket cement around it. Now, probably worth saying, if you are trying to install some of these ring seals like this, typically you can see you can put the seal either way around. You could put it that way or you could put it that way. I'm going to give you a little bit of a crap explanation here, but basically you want to put the open-ended here. You see there's a split in it there, you can actually see the sealing lip and stuff like that. This side wants to go on the oily side, so it could be like a seal for the end of your crankshaft or something like that. So typically that, if that was on your engine, this would be on the outside of the engine and this would be on the inside. So basically the dirty oily side always points inwards. And that's what we've done here. So basically the dirty oily side is pointing in towards where the bearings are, and then we've got this nice flat surface that we can pound on. And there is a reason for that, because if you get any pressure building up inside here that would tend to force the oil out, what happens is it kind of gets behind the seal and it kind of inflates it slightly, it pushes it out and expands it, so that's what you want to do. If you put it that way around, if you get some pressure inside the hub, it will just tighten up and seal it better. While I'm at it, I've just got a little bit of grease here, and I'm just going to put a bit of a coating of grease around this seal here, which I just want it to all stand a good chance here of you know, going on without catching and damaging the edge of the seal when we slip it over the shaft. So the next job that I'm going to do is adjust the brakes. I'm going to make sure they're fully wound off before I try and put the drum on and adjust it. And actually Chevy make a special tool to do that, but unfortunately I don't have one. The special tool they use, all it is like a little metal bar, very much like this. But I don't know if anybody recognises what that is. Well, I'll tell you anyway. Basically this is off a little 9-inch angle grinder, and it's a tool that you would use to actually put the the cutting disc on or off. But we're not going to use the business end, we're actually going to use this flat end, and we insert it in the back of the drum. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. We insert it in the back of the drum here, and there is some teeth on here that will that we can turn against and wind the shoes out. Well, actually what I'm going to do first, I'm going to wind them out a bit first, because I'm going to put a little bit of lube on everything. Okay, so I've just wound the brake shoes in. It's actually a little bit of a pain to do that. You've got to do an awful lot of movements to make these things move at all. What I think we'll do next is I'll just give these brake shoes one last clean. As I say, ideally they'll be replaced at some point, because I'm sure that once they're contaminated with oil you never actually get it all off, but they're certainly not thick with oil like they were when we started, so I'm expecting a little bit of an improvement. And if these oil seals hold, if we have in fact cracked it, which I'm sure we will have done, what I'll do is I'll order a new set of brake shoes and we'll put them on at some point in the future. But I think that'll do for now. I think while we've got this apart, it's worth just taking another look at this, let's call it the flinger mechanism. So what you can see here, we've got this this metal ring here, this I don't know, polo mint, whatever you want to call it, and this inner surface here, this is what the oil seal presses against. But any oil that gets past the seal will come in contact with this this round biscuit tin lid, this backing plate, and the oil will run down the backing plate. And it will find its way, it'll run down the back of there and it'll find its way into this tin shield here, and then from this tin shield it will get thrown out of these holes here. So I think that's really, I'm quite taken with that mechanism there. That's quite a clever idea, isn't it? The way that somebody's thought, if there is an oil contamination getting into here, it's got a chance of getting out of the axle, getting out of the wheel, as opposed to getting onto all these brake shoes. Oh, that stuff stinks. Okay, that feels nice. Okay, so I've got a little box of parts here, all clean from the parts washer and ready to go on. Let me just rummage around in my box, and we're looking for a thrust washer. So let's see if we can find the thrust washer. There we go, there's a thrust washer, if anybody doesn't know what that is. Basically what this is for, it's to stop the actual locking nut that we're going to put on next. It's to stop the locking nut coming in contact with the bearing. It's got a little tab on it. Can you see the tab there? This tab engages in a notch here in the axle, and that stops the washer from spinning round, because if it did spin round it would try to undo the nut that goes on after it, and we don't want it to undo this nut, because if the nut undoes the wheel falls off, and that's never a good idea. So let's put this thrust washer in, and we will we'll line it up with the little tab on there and push it on. So yep, that's gone in, that's fine. The next thing we have to put on is this is the adjustment nut, so we're going to fit the adjustment nut, so let's put that on. He said being rather cack-handed. Ah, bugger, forgotten something. Okay, the instruction manuals just call up for you to stake this in, which basically what they mean is we're just going to put some dents in here which will expand the metal slightly and just help squeeze the oil seal in. So let's put one there, equally spaced one there, and one about there. And that's just swelled the metal slightly and should just help stop that falling out. I don't think it'll fall out anyway because of the goo we've put on it. Well, if any of you are following me step by step, that's buggered you up, hasn't it? Right. Yeah. Here's another go. Come on, you bastard. Okay, what's going on? Right, and the instructions all seem a bit vague. Basically, it says we should adjust it until this is tight. Does anybody know, is that tight for a fat American or a skinny European? I don't know. Right, okay, so that's tight. And then it says something a little bit bizarre. We've got to slacken it off then by 45 degrees, which it says is the gap between, approximately the gap between two adjacent wheel lugs. So let me just figure this out before we do it. So I said throwing it across the floor. So that, what would that be? So that's one. It goes between three wheel lugs. So from there to there is 90 degrees, isn't it? So from there to there it's 45. So it's telling us now slacken this off until it's at 45 degrees. So let's do that. So I've lined the stud up there. Then we're going to slacken it off until it's... Alright, so that's 45 degrees in theory. I think that's moving alright. I don't know. I think that's alright. I mean, it's not very loose, but this has got grease in it rather than axle oil. Let's see what happens if you slacken it off more. So that was 45. Let's go another 45. I'll repeat it again. Okay. Sorry, I know I'm wittering on, but I've not done this before, or I haven't done it in a lot of years. So that would be 90 degrees. And I've got to admit, that feels a bit better. But it all comes back to what is tight. Let's tighten it up again. So, that's tight. And that's still rotating quite happily. And then it says we've got to turn that by 45 degrees, so which is there. Well, I don't know. We could do that all day, couldn't we? It all comes down to what your interpretation is of tight or not tight, free or not free. I think this is one of those things where you probably need a mechanic's feel, and yeah. Probably go a little bit slacker, I think. Maybe back a little bit. We could do it forever, couldn't we? We could be backwards and forwards on that forever. I don't know, it's a feel thing. Have I got it right? Have I not got it right? Well, certainly I haven't done what some people do, which is just tighten the nut up as hard as they can and then wonder why the bearings get hot and the wheel falls off. So I haven't done that. Right, I'm going to go for that. Stop messing. Go for that. You've got to make a decision, haven't you? You've got to make a decision and go for it, even if it's bollocks. Right, okay. This is a locking washer now that goes on, and what we've got to do is, it's got these little tabs on it here. Can you see them? These little tabs. We've got to knock these tabs over, and one of these tabs will fit into the back of this lock nut here. So I think what you've got to do is you've got to find the nearest tab that will fit it and bend it round. Okay, so we're back on Handy Wank Cam, and hopefully you can see if it's all terribly out of focus, but we've bent this tab down here. So we bent this tab over, and this is just engaged in the castellated top of the nut. And what that'll do, because that is engaged in the nut there, and then the other part of the washer is engaged in that notch there, it won't actually allow that nut to turn now, so it can't come undone. So that should stop the nut, the locking nut, that should stop the adjustment nut from coming undone. So next we've got to fit a locking nut, and then we're done pretty much. So now finally this nut is a lock nut, which should stop anything coming adrift. So really you've got two safeties, haven't you? You've got an inner nut for adjusting, which has got a lock tab on it, and you've also got an outer nut here, which is just a locking nut, and that's also can take a tab. So it's got two chances to stop this nut from coming undone and the wheel falling off. So let's hope that two chances is enough. And I'm guessing we just tighten this up. Well, I've just reinstalled the second nut, which is called the lock nut, and I bent the tab over at about the 11 o'clock position. And while this was off camera, I have to admit, I've had these nuts on and off about 4 or 5 times, because a little problem I was having is I got it adjusted right with the first nut, which is the adjustment nut. So I had it all set right, but when I tightened down the second nut, the jam nut, the lock nut if you like, I was finding that it was putting enough pressure onto the first nut to affect the bearing preload. It was tightening it all up again. So I've had it on and off about 4 times trying to get what I think is the perfect feel. And I say the perfect feel, it's been about 30 years since I've changed a wheel bearing myself, so you know, I'm not exactly an authority on it. But I think you do have quite a lot of latitude on these wheel bearings. It is something that you just do by feel. The worst thing you can do is actually have the wheel bearing really tight. You don't want it really tight. You don't want it so sloppy that you can feel any play in anything. You want it somewhere in between. But, you know, probably don't get too strung up about it. You just want it so you can spin it and it'll rotate freely without any kind of stiffness or binding coming from the bearing. So, yeah, good luck with that. I'll let you know if the wheel falls off, eh? Right, so really we're about done there. All we've got to do now is install this. Well, it talks about installing a gasket on here, but this doesn't feel like a gasket. This feels like some kind of a shim to get the half shaft dimension right when it engages into the differential. So I would call that a shim rather than a gasket. It talks about not putting any lubricant on here because it can make the thing come undone. But I think what I will do is I am tempted just to put a little bit of that gasket cement on it. Not too much, I'm not going to go mad, just going to, you know, put a thin smear of gasket cement on it, and then we can bolt this back on. So we've got all these to bolt on, and the final job that we will have to do is we've got to torque these up to, well, to an advised setting. So we're going to torque them bolts up. Ooh, just put a little bit of smoo in there, let's get that out. Don't want any smoo, do we? Well, I'll tell you something else that I did today. I went to Machine Mart, which I think is the equivalent of, I think you guys in the States call it Harbour Freight, where, you know, basically they sell Chinese tat at extortionate prices that you can buy, you know, much cheaper online or off eBay or something like that. But the thing about them, of course, and I guess it is the selling point, is that they're available and they're local and they're open. I don't really think a great deal about what they sell. Anyway, while I was in there, you saw me messing about with all that paraffin the other day. I bought a parts washer, and I noticed that it says on this parts washer not to be used with paraffin. So yeah, I mean, I've used these water soluble degreasers before, and well, let's face it, they're utter crap, aren't they? So I'm afraid I will be invalidating the warranty and filling it up with paraffin. And yeah, I'll let you know how that goes. Right, okay, let's get that. Okay, so that's that done. Let's just hang that on there a sec. Now we've got to install the half shaft. Probably isn't necessary to put any grease on here, it should get covered in differential oil soon enough, but it doesn't hurt anything either, does it? And one thing we haven't got to forget is we've now got to slip this over the shaft. So let's do that. It's over there, and we can now insert our half shaft. But you know what, I'm going to be worrying about this, installing this bearing and half shaft for months, I can just tell. I say I'm going to be worried about it. I'm going to worry about it until I kind of forget anyway, aren't I? Find something else to worry about. Right, and there should be some, we made some alignment marks on here, didn't we? Not that it matters, but there's one there, and there's one there. So that's going to go something like that. Okay. And it also mentions that we need to just install a little bit of gasket sealant on the threads of these bolts just to stop the oil coming up through them. So we will do that as well. And now we've just got these to tighten up, and yeah, it does actually give you a torque setting for these, so we'll have to get a torque wrench out. But I can't torque them up just yet because the vehicle is jacked off the floor, and if I try to torque them up, it'll just spin the hub, just spin it like that, which we don't want. Right, okay, just got to line up the countersunk screws, which were there. I think that's that one and that one, isn't it? So looks like they go there. Oh, God, they are quite heavy, these. Nope, that's not it. I think it's that one. Huh, no. Yeah, that's totally wrong, didn't I? Let's have another go. Tell you what, try and make it easy himself. Let's put the countersunk one right at the top, which is there. Let's have another go. Lots of huffing and puffing going on, isn't there? Yeah, got that wrong. Let's have another go. Is that going to work? Oh, because it's there. We will, don't worry. We'll get there eventually. Ah, there we go. Oof. Nearly died then. Oh, seems to be becoming very enfeebled tonight and cack-handed. There's one of them in. There's the one. Let's tighten these buggers up. Now it'd be interesting to know, does anybody know, did I do this right? Have I made a complete pig's ear of it? Have I done a crap job? Have I done a good job? Leave it in the comments, I'd love to know. Right, okay, so we've just got to adjust these brakes up now, or at least adjust them up a little bit, so I can put the handbrake on. So we've just got to jam my tool in this slot here, and yeah, I find the best approach is just to kind of sneak up on her from behind and slip your tool in and jiggle it around until the job's done. And yeah, that approach also works for brakes. Right, well that isn't working, so I think I must have to go the other way. Okay, so I've just adjusted up the brakes a little bit. They're not perfect, they need doing properly in the future. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to torque up these bolts holding the half shafts in. So I've just applied the parking brake, and we can just use a torque wrench now to torque these up. And the figure that you're looking for is between 85 and 95 foot-pounds, which isn't ridiculously tight, to be honest. So there's one done. And we've got to attack these kind of across corners if we can. Oh, missed one. I think we'll call that done.